Welcome to Direct Approach, a bi-weekly podcast hosted by Wayne Moorehead, delivering timely insights, fresh perspectives, and actionable takeaways from your direct selling executive peers to fuel your business's growth and evolution. What does it take to turn culture into a competitive advantage? In this episode of Direct Approach, host Wayne Moorehead sits down with Jennifer and Bret Bonacorsi, co-founders of jBloom, to explore how their intentional leadership and community-first values transformed their company and led to one of the most successful acquisitions in the channel. But before we begin, we'd like to thank this episode's sponsor, Exego. Tired of struggling with outdated systems and inflated technical debt? Are you losing time and money on staff or software inefficiencies? Exego can help. Our all-in-one platform as a service simplifies everything from commissions to reporting to e-commerce. With Exego, you can finally focus on growing your business, not managing it. Don't let technical headaches hold you back. Visit exego.com and discover how Exego can transform your MLM company. Now let's welcome your host, Wayne Moorehead, and his guests, Bret and Jennifer Bonacorsi.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of DSN's Direct Approach podcast. As always, I'm your host, Wayne Moorehead. And today I have the privilege of interviewing two co-founders who took a leap of faith in 2004 to pursue entrepreneurship and created an inspiring direct selling company. I'm excited to welcome Bret and Jennifer Bonacorsi, co-founders of jBloom. Welcome. Thank you both so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you on the podcast. We've been wanting to be able to dig in deeper with you. As I mentioned before we started recording, I'm a huge fan, loved your DSU presentation, and I know we're going to speak more about it today. But you both have such interesting backgrounds coming out of education and in the corporate world as well. And can you take just a moment to share a bit about the path that led you into direct selling?
Absolutely. My story, I was an early childhood special education teacher before having a family. And once we started having our family, I knew that I wanted to be able to stay home with them. And so I just started making jewelry for fun, I thought. It was just going to be a hobby for myself. And I would wear it out and about to my girls' dance classes, to church, and I would come home with no jewelry on because I was selling it off of me. And Bret was watching that happen for quite a few months. And he said, you should have home parties and let people design their own jewelry and see what happens. I would take it home and finish it for them. So we created a company called You Design Jewelry back in 2004. And I would take loose beads into people's homes, let them design their own. I would take it home and finish it for them. And that went on for about a year. And people at those initial parties were asking if they could do what I was doing and if they could be under me. So we had taken a Mary Kay, a Pampered Chef, and an Usborne Books catalog and created our own program. And just from those successful companies at the time, we knew that we could create our own company as well. So that's how it all started. And we did that until about 2012. And what was happening was people were getting burnt out on having to make the jewelry, and beaded jewelry really wasn't the trend any longer, but personalization was. And we had added that towards the end of You Design Jewelry. So we were able to personalize pieces that with handwriting, children's names, anything special that they wanted on jewelry, we were doing that. And that was really growing. And then I was also noticing that there was a group of women that wanted to wear jewelry and wanted to sell it. But the minute I would say you had to make it, they were out. So I came home at one of my parties and told Bret that we needed to change the whole structure and have a company that you could wear and sell it, wear your story, but not have to make it any longer. And so that's how jBloom was birthed in 2013. So it's been an amazing journey so far.
And then on my background, I was on the corporate side. Like you said, I was actually a buyer for a mass merchandiser and loved doing that. That's why when I saw her selling it, I'm like, we can buy this way better than you're buying it right now. And so I was always intrigued on the business side. And so through the years of corporate America and buying, then I went over into sales as a national sales manager for a large national company for many years and loved it. loved the corporate world, loved the people I met, but didn't like the freedom it gave me. So when we had this opportunity, we just started doing it while I worked out of my house in sales is where we started the company. And then it grew from there. And then in 2006, I was able to walk away, and we've been doing it full time together ever since. So it's good. I do the business side. She does the creative side. So we stay in our separate lanes.
And it's amazing how both your unique talents and experiences, came together to create such a long-lasting and fast-growing company. And a couple of things that really came to mind as you were discussing what an incredible proof of concept to be wearing the jewelry, to be showing the product and have people literally just ask for it and take it right off your neck or your wrist or whatever it is.
It was happening.
Yeah, so it's amazing and important to stay close to the consumer. And I know that change, and we're going to talk a little bit about this as we get further in, but staying ahead of the trends and you listening and understanding the changing consumer needs, the consumer drivers, I know has been a really big part of your success. And as I mentioned, I think everybody listening needs to go back and watch your DSU presentation with everything happening in the channel right now with mergers, with acquisitions, with so many distributor leaders looking for new homes. Culture and community are becoming more important than ever. And probably at this point in a highly competitive environment are true differentiators and greatest competitive advantages. It's really what sets us apart from D2C brands, from CPG, the mass retail brands out there. And there's probably, as you lived it and are going to share with us, no more challenging undertaking than trying to merge cultures. If something is what sets a company apart, that makes it so unique, trying to bring those together is perilous at best, if not almost impossible. But you successfully navigated these waters, and I'm excited to dump in a little bit more. Yeah. And as we talk about culture, there's probably not a business meeting where the topic doesn't come up, but it is so not well understood, I think, or really implemented well, or really a driver. It kind of is given lip service at so many companies out there, but you've really made it the foundation and the hallmark of being able to maintain a healthy, unique culture. I'm curious, for your company, why was culture, why was community such an important driver?
Yeah, I think even in direct sales in general, it is much more important than in a lot of industries, right? So direct sales is so much about individuals all coming together for a common goal in a community. And that's so much more than any other industry that we've seen, right? It's just so many people coming together with all different cultures, just wanting some keys to success. And so I was very fortunate to grow up actually as my parents were pastors, and then entrepreneurs first became pastors. And so I saw that on both sides, and you'd be surprised how much those two industries correlate, right? Because in both organizations, everyone is a volunteer, right? Your entire sales force is a volunteer. In a church community, everyone is a volunteer. So if you don't help them, if you don't encourage them, if you don't support them in some way, they're going to go somewhere else. That's just pretty simple. And so we knew that from growing up, and we just tried to make that a cornerstone of what we did here to try to make it a long-lasting thing, because we quickly learned that culture was so important. And that keeps you together through the good times and sometimes through the bad times too, if you have that community because of that reason. And there's so many parallels in that.
Yeah, that's a really great analogy. I love that. And I know that you're both really passionate about the importance of culture from a priority standpoint. And Jennifer, I heard you mention at your DSU that culture is even more important than product. Can you expand on that just a little bit?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to share too, is we have learned over the years that the atmosphere that you create in your company is more important than the product that you sell. But don't get me wrong, because we do want a good product. That's a key also. But it all goes back to Mary Kay. What this whole concept was built on is that people will remember how you make them feel. And culture is that feeling that you get in an organization. Product and the process is all important, but you must do all of that well. And that is what keeps your people in your company. That is that culture that you create.
And that's what attracts people to it too. When people hear and can hear about that's attractive to people.
It is. I feel it's almost as if that is the element that we use to position our companies, where in many other industries or channels, without taking away from incredible products in this channel, there's potential replacement products. They might not be as good, they might not be as effective, but there's other replacement products and other products in consumers' consideration set. And so they're really that culture is what's going to attract. And Jennifer, I love that you said it's what keeps people there. Where in the D2C world with influencer and affiliate, it's the one and done, people move on, but people are looking for that home and that community and culture to really be a part of that resonates with them. And I think that's so powerful. And on the early days when you were founding the company, I know that there were many aspects and elements that you had to consider, from potentially raising money and funding to what's the product assortment, manufacturing, supply chain, which Bret, luckily you had, deep experience in. Was culture an element and top of mind for both of you at those initial stages, or did its importance become more apparent as time went on?
Well, absolutely, both of it. Kind of at jBloom, I have always loved fashion and the design aspect. That was easy. And Bret is a business marketing person, so he loved that part of the business. So those were the easy parts. But when we had to create something others wanted to be a part of, we wanted to create something that truly can make a difference in the lives of so many people. And direct sales was the perfect fit for that. And yes, many love the extra income, but then they realize that they find relationships they never knew that they needed. And that's the best part. And that's what makes us so excited. So we were very intentional to create a place where people felt love, support, and the feeling of being heard. We know that if we could do all of that, that we could build a business that would last.
So you mentioned being intentional about the process. And one of the things our listeners love are some of those key takeaways, those frameworks, those processes. I'm curious how you approached that. Did you both sit down and really start identifying key elements? What are the values that are going to be the foundation? What's the purpose? How did you undertake that process? Did you sit down together and start writing out a list? How did that take shape?
I would say we probably didn't do that at first. It probably just happened more organically at first because we knew how important that was. But then, to your point, we did finally put a pencil and paper to it and say, what are the core values, of jBloom? And we need to make sure we're focusing on that. We're talking about that because that's as important. So for us, our core values are our faith, right? Trust, which we learn is big in this industry, right? Recognition, on trend, quality, and change. And change is a big one too. And we figured you had to talk about it because people always get mad. Sometimes people get mad when there's lots of change, but in our industry, there's change and you have to keep doing it.
Well, and if you don't change, that's when you either end up closing or you waited too long and you can't rebuild and we've noticed that along the way too. We also were really good listeners to our field. Like we were hearing what they were saying. And so that's when we knew that we needed to create these core values because we were listening to what they were saying.
Yeah, and we found out the more we talked about those values, then it made it easier when we did have to make change. We could talk about, hey, trust us. Remember, that's a core value. Mm-hmm. So if it helped to just talk about those conversations when you have to make hard decisions in business, right? And so we were able to do those things because we could say, hey, remember, trust. You got to trust that we're trying to do the best for all of us, right? Mm-hmm. And then if you're upfront and honest about it, then usually it worked out. And if you get a few of those wins, then they start trusting you and believing you more. And that helps create that environment, that culture that we want to create.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And I think it's great that you can both recite all of those core values by heart. I know as leaders, sometimes we can get really tired of beating that drum, but there's always new people, whether it's in the field, whether it's in the company, to create that level of understanding that they become filters for decision making, as you said. And I know you mentioned that change was maybe a little bit of a late addition to those core values or came in a little bit later. And I think that's so wise to help condition the field for change, especially today, in today's world, especially in the fashion, category where trends are going to change, but helping them understand that that's a normal part of business and not to get too locked in on any one element of the company. So I think that was so wise and really impressed by that.
Because ultimately that all ties into belief as well, because a strong culture will foster belief in what we're doing. And we never want to change just to change. We want to change to make it better, and to change to make our designers better. So that was a part that we really had to hone in on and make sure our designers felt that we weren't just changing to change. We were changing because we wanted to help your business grow
in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
So as you began to build out the corporate team, you'd established your values and started creating the culture. The right team members can help forward and accentuate a culture. The wrong team members, unfortunately, can squash or kill a corporate culture. Why? And I know that this was such an important part to make sure that you had the right people in the company. Can you talk a little bit more about how you went through the process of finding the right people that would be a cultural fit for what you were creating?
Yeah, it is the hot topic when you bring in a new corporate employee or a contractor. We're here to serve our designers ultimately, because without helping the field, none of us have a job. And so we want to make sure that we are all on the same page from the start. We may not pay the highest salary in the industry, but we want to provide a purpose and not just a job. So we tell our order and shipping departments that all the time, that we share stories from the field so that they realize that they're not just shipping some jewelry out, they're shipping to something that could be affecting a whole entire family. And that gives us so much more meaning than just a job. And then if we happen to be gone, either we're out of town, we don't have to worry one bit if what's happening here at the home office, because they take so much pride in what they do.
Yeah, we are so thankful for the people that we have surrounded ourselves with, that they also attract people that if we've never even advertised for jobs, because they all recommend people because they want to work with people that are like them. And so it's really helped. It's been amazing to see that more and more people come to join us that are like-minded too, because the people that work here want those people here. And that's been helpful for us too as well. But we have a great group of people who truly, it's not just a job, they truly care about what they do. I know it sounds kind of corny, but they truly care about what they're doing here every day. Like we just had our conference, we just came back from our annual conference, and it was awesome to see. We bring all of our staff there, whether it's our shipping department, they're all part of the first opening day. And they get to see names of people that they see on orders, and they just really connect with them. And it's neat. And our people are excited to see them because they know what they're doing behind the scenes. So it really just creates that atmosphere that people love and people want to be part of.
I love that you invite all of your employees to conference. It is such an important cultural touchstone, maybe the most important event. And to be able to close that loop and understand the people that they're serving, I think can be really important. I think that's a great takeaway that all of our companies can bring home, starting this next week to our companies, to our next conference, but bringing everyone to be able to experience that big event, I think is incredible. And I love that you mentioned the fulfillment department and others. I think that really speaks to your leadership style and the culture that you're creating. There are often these forgotten departments. I use that in quotes lovingly, whether it's fulfillment or customer service, but they are such important touch points with the end consumer, with our distributors, that they often don't get the recognition that they deserve. So thank you for highlighting that. I think that's really cool.
Just as important.
They're very important.
For sure.
So Bret, can you talk a little bit about the idea of giving it time? Making sure that you have runway, giving your company runway as you're starting a company, because there was lots that you learned along the way that had significant impacts on the growth trajectory of the company. Can you share a little more on that idea of giving it time?
Yeah, for sure. It's not always easy, right? For those of us that are driven and entrepreneurs, you want to get there fast, and it's hard to say and it's hard to do. We preach to our field, all the time. Don't compare yourself, right? You hear it in our industry all the time. Don't compare your journey to somebody else's. Well, it's hard when you sit back and you're growing nice and steadily, and you see these companies shoot up and go to 50, 100, $200 million, and you're just steadily growing. And it's like, just be patient sometimes. And that's hard to do, but it does pay off. And it's sometimes hard to watch even, but we just kept believing it. We just keep doing it and keep doing it the right way and keep having steady growth, and things will happen. And now today, some of those companies that we saw do those great growths are no longer in business. And here we are still going, and now at our biggest growth period we've ever had in the last 2 or 3 years. So sometimes it just takes a little time to hit that right thing. Even with the Plunder acquisition, they were a much larger company than us. And over time, it just worked out that it worked out better for us to continue versus them. And so we just really believe that sometimes, patience is hard. And we always teach it to our field. Sometimes it's a hard pill for some of us to swallow corporately because we want everything to happen tomorrow as well, too, if we're honest about it. And so trying to watch that and just be patient for the right timing. And then it usually does. Our example, it's paid off for sure.
And sometimes it takes time to hit that right product. For us, that was Permalinks, which is our permanent jewelry line. It was actually our daughter's idea because she was noticing and seeing it everywhere on TikTok. But she kept telling us that we had to do this. And it wasn't really the system that we could work into the direct sales model. But after many, many conversations, we created a new system that would work for direct sales. And within a month, we had samples and launched a test group 2 months later, and then to our entire field 4 months later. And in the first year, this whole new line did more volume than all of jBloom. And so it has been all about being patient and trying new things until the perfect product or program hits. And now Permalinks is what is driving so much of our growth.
And sometimes listening to the young generation, they do know they are pretty smart.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's in that story, what popped into my mind was the balance of having the patience to find the right product market fit, but also the speed to quickly adapt, especially again in a channel or a category that you're in, is so important. So to be able to have both of those attributes, balancing simultaneously in the company, I think is incredible. And I know
we also didn't launch it perfect. That was the other thing. We did launch it fast because speed is important. You have to have a pretty good shape, but we weren't perfect with it, and we were upfront about that. We're like, hey, you guys, this is something we think is a great to our field. This is a great opportunity. Many of them, we met with our top 30 leaders when we announced it to them. Most all of them had never even heard of permanent.
They thought we were going to tattoo the jewelry on them.
So just being willing to say, hey, this isn't perfect, but we're going to promise to figure it out fast. And we think it's that big of an opportunity. We want to do it now instead of wait till it's perfect. And sometimes that makes a big difference too.
It does. And I think that speaks and reflects back to the trust that you established with the field, where they kind of gave you the permission to, hey, we're going to move fast on this. May not be perfect. Again, it just shows the trust that they have in you and the corporate team there. I think that's great. You mentioned Plunder and the acquisition. As we know, this is a very interesting time in the channel with lots of acquisitions, with lots of mergers, with unfortunate closings or people shifting out of the channel and the business model. And so this is something that's really top of mind and one of the most important topics that we're discussing in the channel right now that comes up at DSU. Can you talk a little bit about how the Plunder acquisition came about?
Yeah, first, you're right. There are lots of changes, and we are firm believers in this category, in this channel. We couldn't be more proud of the direct sales and what it can offer. But simply enough, it's kind of funny. One of my friends in the industry got a message from Plunder because they saw that he and I were friends on Facebook. So that's kind of how the conversation even started, because we were Facebook friends. They reached out and then asked, would you be interested? And so I'm like, well, of course, we'll be happy to talk and see where it can go. And so when they reached out, then we just started, the conversations really moved pretty quickly. And we knew that we knew it would be a good fit when both of us sat down and talked and said, hey, this is only going to work if it works for the salespeople, for our designers. They call them stylists. And we just said from the first conversations, we just got to remember that this isn't about what's going to win for jBloom. It's about what's going to win for them. If we keep that at the center of all this, then I think we can make this happen. And that really is probably not normal, but it really was what worked out well and allowed us to come about and make it happen pretty quickly and make it work for, hopefully, for both of us in the long term and for the sales force as well.
Yeah, and most often, regardless of channel, acquisitions or mergers never end up delivering the estimated or desired value, but it's really worked out well here. And one of the things that really stood out to me in your DSU speech was this idea that you actually can't merge cultures. where I think that's where we fall down. Many of us try to bring those things together and create something new, but you were very intentional on not merging those two cultures. Jennifer, can you share a little bit more on that?
Absolutely, because we have seen that go very wrong in our industry. And we quickly found out that all the companies that we all have a different culture. No one is better than the other, but it is each one is different. And we strongly believe that we couldn't merge our cultures together, but we can merge them into yours. So we knew that they could be brought into ours, but the best way to do that was to be upfront and honest about the process from the start. We explained that we would and what we wouldn't do, and just being honest about it, and it really did work out.
Yeah. Even we learned it individually at a small scale in the past when you have groups of people join your company, but at different levels, not at a company level, and they all think, well, we have to do it like this. And we would try to do that. And we learned that just doesn't work because that's not who we are. And so we learned, thank goodness, on a smaller scale in the past, that if you just tell them, hey, here's why we're not going to do that, and here's why we don't do that. I wouldn't say they always love it right away, but if you're upfront, honest, and just tell them, then it was great to see how quickly they understood that, okay, that's not going to work here. And then we kept talking about the trust that we want to build with them. And then it usually would pan out. And then they would see down the road, okay, that did work. I now understand. But it's hard because you want to make everybody happy in a situation like that, but you also want to do what's right for the entire organization. And sometimes that's not always doing everything a different way.
Absolutely. And you went through kind of 6 key elements that really made this a successful merger and has really added some great growth to the company. And I'd love to dig in on a few of these. Can you talk about how you initially started? I know communication was huge in this. It wasn't just sending them an email. Can you share a little bit about those initial meetings and communications with the leaders that were coming over to jBloom?
Yeah, we were fortunate that we could get together with them before it was even announced publicly. And so getting to meet them and see them in person was something, I know it's not always easy to do, but we were blessed in the situation to be able to do that, because there's something about seeing someone face to face, even though, not gonna lie, it's a hard situation. It was hard for them, it was awkward for us, but being able to see a real person and get to know them, it also really helped us for when we knew we wanted to get their leaders together with our leaders. And when you meet someone, even your first impressions can usually be pretty good about knowing that person's personality on who you could connect them with within our organization that they will mesh with. And so being able to, that first meeting, know who they were and know a little bit about them. So then when they met with our leaders a week or two later, we could connect them with people that were very like-minded to them, that they could feel more at home with. And some of those relationships are very strong to this day. 18 months in now, they've become great friends because of that, which has been neat to see.
Yeah. Can you share more about connecting leaders with leaders from the incoming culture and the existing jBloom culture and the effect that had? Because there's a lot of trust going both ways there. So trusting them, trusting you, and you saying, okay, here's this relationship that you could have kind of excluded them. You could have said, hey, we're going to bring these in and work with them ourselves. But that connection with the leaders, I thought, was so wise and brilliant.
It really was the icing on the cake when you could get both of them together. And we strategically had them placed at different tables as well with like-minded, just from what we learned a few weeks before, just meeting some of the Plunder leaders, we could tell what kind of leader they were, and we placed them with the same type of leader that we had at jBloom. And so they could all kind of sit in these little groups together, learn from each other, which was also really neat too, because the way that these Plunder girls were doing things was a little bit different than our girls. And so it was great to see how they were learning from each other on how they can even make their businesses better by merging the two things together. And
we did have to be a little careful about, because a lot of our leaders all wanted to be part of it, which we knew they would, but we didn't want to overwhelm all the new leaders coming in with a whole bunch of our leaders. So we just picked a couple for every maybe 8 or 10 of them. We had 1 or 2 of ours, just so they could get a feel for it. And it really did work out well. And those connections were made, which really helped once everything was announced.
Yeah, there was definitely some politics to navigate there in making sure that they were with the most like-minded people. Another really impressive tactic or strategy that you deployed was leaving certain breadcrumbs and allowing a little bit of this combination of some of the products. I heard you tell the story of where you allowed some of their products to be kind of co-marketed into some of the social feeds, and that even got jBloom distributors and designers excited. Can you talk about that example?
It was something that we knew we wanted to make them feel a little bit at home. And let's be honest, they had some stock that was worthwhile for us to bring over. It worked out good in that way. And so we were able to make them feel like, hey, I have some of my items here that I'm already selling to my current customers. So that gave them made them feel a little bit more at home. Peace of mind's a great word. And so, but it did help our people. They're like, hey, we got 30 new items to sell all of a sudden. And so it was old to their people, but not old to our people. And so it was good to see that work both ways and help on both sides. And it really turned out well. And then that helped us with some vendors. We made some vendor relationships that we didn't have before that then could help us down the road as well too. So it was kind of a good mix all around and helped them feel comfortable they had something here. And then it was a good timing too. There was like 3 months before a new catalog was going to launch. So it was kind of a little lull. Everyone's waiting for a new catalog. So it gave a little shot in the arm for those few months before a new catalog came out. And at that point, then it could be all jBloom from that going forward.
Are you ready to revolutionize the way your direct selling company accesses industry insights? Introducing the DSN Library's Smart Search, an AI-powered tool that puts over 2,000 curated assets at your fingertips. From compensation trends to emerging markets, answers are just a click away. If you're already a DSN supporter, then you have access to Smart Search right now. If not, it's time to check out our updated program for 2025. Starting at just $1,000 per month, your entire company can get access to the channel's most comprehensive collection of education and insights available. Visit directsellingnews.com/supporter to see a demo of Smart Search in action and to learn how your company can become a supporter now. We also invite you to join us for the Fall DSU happening October 7th through 8th in Plano, Texas. Visit dsnevents.com today for details.
Can you talk a little bit about the onboarding? You also did things to kind of personalize, to leave those breadcrumbs and familiarity and help them feel listened to. Can you share a little bit about that onboarding process and how new signups were happening?
Yeah, we wanted to make
that was the key.
Yeah, we wanted to make it as easy as possible. And so with that, we didn't want them to keep their same ID number they had at Plunder. And so we just imported into our system with a P in front of it, right? So that all they had to remember was put a P in front of my current ID number and then automatically reset your password and you're in. And so that was really important to try to make that as seamless as possible, even just to get in, because we knew everybody wasn't going to want to say, this is great, let's just go over, but they could at least try it. There was less of a barrier entry to say, hey, let me see what this is about. And so that opened that up, as well as we had meetings every week, actually every day for 2 weeks. That we had a Zoom open for them just to come in and ask questions. And then we had an online document that they could go through, because it's different than just a new designer would do, because these are all experienced people, right? They've already been doing this as well too. It wouldn't be what a normal new designer would go through. So we created something separate for them that was just more about jBloom, our culture, our values, and then here are the key things you need to know to get in your back office, to place an order, all in one document. They didn't have to search all over training for it. They had it all in one space that was clickable to go watch videos and just try to make it as easy as possible for them.
Yeah, that definitely accelerated that process. And it illustrates that there's no detail too small. I thought the concept of letting them keep their same IDs was really cool. A nice way to welcome them, to make things easy, to make it segment, but to really show them that you're doing everything you can, to make that onboarding and transition as easy as possible. Jennifer, what were some of the other aspects in this merger or things that jBloom did to really combine these and help welcome them into your corporate culture?
Well, one of the things that happened organically, we didn't even plan it.
I wish we did.
I wish I could take credit for it, but it was just so fun to watch. We had a page on Facebook called the Look of the Day page, and it had just kind of fizzled out a little bit. But one day, one of the new Plunder leaders posted on that Look of the Day page, introducing herself, talking about the joy that she had just received from jBloom. And that started this huge ripple effect that everyone just started going in, welcoming her, and then that made other people want to do the same thing. They started posting their pictures, the jewelry, and it just became a place where they all could go, introduce themselves, have fun, and it was just an amazing thing to watch.
That was probably one of those proud things for us, because we had no idea it was happening, just saw it happening organically, and seeing that our culture welcoming them in, they're like, they didn't know what to do. And it was just, and then them one after the other kept posting, and our people kept saying, oh, you're beautiful. That piece is great. Thank you for posting the great picture. And it just kept going over and over again. And it just really brought the two together in a way we hadn't even planned, even better than we ever could, because it was all on social media, so anyone could jump in.
And that page is public too, so customers are in there and they could see it all happening. And that's also a place where they can share the pictures that are in there. And so that was happening too. So it was a really great thing to watch.
A lot of times culture needs to be experienced to be fully understood by someone that is newly initiated into it. But I know in all of your communications and your discussions, you really went into detail in describing those values, the vision that you both have. How receptive, how open were they during these discussions where they learned more from you firsthand before they had a chance to really be in? How important was that aspect to it?
Yeah,
I think that was
very
the key.
important. Yeah.
They could hear from our heart. We were open to hearing what they had to say too. And because, it was a shock to their leaders that this was happening to them. And so for us to be available to help during that time, I think was the key.
Yeah, for sure. And it was just neat to see them be receptive to it too, because you're right, it was a little hard for them at first, but and kudos to them. That was a big part of them being receptive too, even though it was a hard situation. They were willing to listen and hear it out. And then that's all we asked. And we said that from the beginning. All we're asking is that you give it a try. That's all we're asking. And give it a shot, get connected to our people, get connected into how we do business, and go from there. And that's all we ever asked of them from the start. And we were thankful that a large number of them did that.
Are there any other tactics or elements that you approach that really made this successful that you want to mention?
Actually, we were surprised. We had people ask all the time, what would you do different, right? And
that was going to be one of my next questions. So that's great.
Sorry,
yeah.
We get asked that a lot. And really, looking back at it, nothing is perfect for any means, but it really did flow. We were very thankful, as good as we had. The only thing that was different was the hard part was the part before, that we didn't have control over what was happening on the other side up until the announcement. So that was difficult, knowing that some of that stuff was going on that could make people upset, that we couldn't affect until it was us. So that was a little difficult, and watching some of that happen, but I don't know how I could do that differently, because I think the speed that we did it, and it just sometimes is easier, especially as you mentioned, in today's world where there's things changing, and people then, once things get out, things get different and people want to go different ways, and trying to keep that core together to help as many of them as we could. Doing it as fast as we did, I think worked well in this situation.
We were all available during that time frame too. So we had systems in place to make it as smooth and as possible, or smooth and as easy as possible for them to come over. And I just think, their business could have gone to zero, and it didn't have to do that. They could come over, give it a try, and still have an income coming in instead of losing everything.
That's a good point. When we met with their leaders, it wasn't just Jen and I. It was Jen and I. We have two coaches that coach our top leaders. If they get to certain levels, they get a personal business coach, as well as some of our other staff was with us too. And so that helped having them there. So they didn't just meet us. They met some of the key people who were going to be working with them closely, because they were all top leaders too. So I think that helped too. It wasn't just a Bret and Jennifer show. It was all of us helping them and being willing and knowing, hey, we're here to help.
Yeah. How did the internal staff receive this merger? How did you position it and message it to that internal audience?
They were excited. They were a little nervous about what the volume was going to do, but they were excited. And I think it goes back to them being as excited about jBloom as we are. They truly are. And I don't just say that, they really mean that. And so when they heard it and we told them all about it, and because they didn't know this had been going on, and they were extremely excited. They had questions, but like with the Plunder leaders, we tried to knew what their questions would be and tried to answer as much as we could. And they were excited from day one. They just couldn't wait to see what that meant for the company. which shows the quality of people we have working here that are that excited about what's happening in the company as we are.
It does. Again, reinforcing that culture that you've created there. So what surprised you the most, good or bad, throughout this process, or challenging or optimistic? What surprised you?
I think partly that look of the day page surprised us for sure. We didn't see that coming and that happening. And then I think just sometimes you always think things are going to happen faster than they probably do, right? So we had everything land out. Some of those people, it's still hard. They're going through, they just lost their company they've been working for. That's an emotional thing. And that just you just don't flip a switch and start something new. So I think that was a hard part, is just getting them, building that trust, getting them to see the way we do business, maybe a little different than you did it before, but we think this can work better. And then them being willing to then say, okay, I'm going to try this. And that maybe took a little longer. We said about a year in, they were really starting to hit their stride, but it was hard for them because it was different. And they did a lot of stuff online, which we do too. We do a lot of stuff in person with our permanent jewelry, and that's what's growing it. We're like, come over here, let's try this. And then they would see it. So that getting that to take time was probably more difficult for someone like me. It's not as patient either too, but we realized it's hard for them to go through a situation like that where just overnight your company gets ripped out from under you, like we hear in the industry, and then trying to take that in and take on something new.
And learn a whole new company too. But what has been really neat, fast forward a whole year later, is when we just finished our conference last year, they came to conference and they just had to sit back and watch our award ceremony because they weren't hitting those numbers because we didn't have numbers for them yet. So they just had to sit and watch. And this year, just last weekend, watching all of those girls get to walk across the stage because they were hitting those numbers, and more, a lot of them were hitting higher numbers than what they had before. So it was so much fun to watch that a year later, what's happening with their businesses. So it's been so fun.
For sure.
Yeah, that had to be so rewarding to see the marked difference between, these past two conferences. And again, I know we always measure time in annual conferences, it seems like.
Yes.
So to have those two milestones to be able to compare against each other must have been really, really rewarding to see. We've talked a little bit about change and how that's been part of your values and your culture, staying on top of trends. How do you balance keeping enough of the culture fixed, but yet allowing this flexibility to bring in new aspects, new product lines? How do you balance those with the field?
Yeah, I think it is hard. You definitely can't overflow on one way or the other, right? There's your standard stuff that hopefully will never change within jBloom, right? And you just keep trying to emphasize that. And I think the key is just doing little by little. You can't change everything overnight, nor do you want to, right? But you need to always make changes on that bottom 20% or whatever that is to be able to make those shifts. And to keep that community at the core of it usually helps. But it is a difficult balance to make sure you're not changing everything. And then as well as changing enough that needs to be changed just to get something fresh and get some new things and new way of looking at things.
Jennifer, you mentioned distributors having, the rug pulled out from under them at a previous company, it's just something we're seeing all too frequently or increasingly, it's becoming increasingly common now. With going through this experience, what do you think companies can do to help make themselves an attractive new home, a safe harbor, a safe landing pad for some of these distributors that are leaving other companies and looking for that kind of stable long-term home? Is there, Bret, it came from a Facebook connection, it sounded like, initially, but what else can companies do to help be in other distributors' consideration sets?
I think you have, as owners, I think at that initial time frame, you have to be available to let them see your heart and how you run the business, so that they feel a connection with how we do things, because they're attracted for some reason to you. And if you're available, and that's what I keep hearing back, even when we're together at our conferences and things, they're like, you're always so available and you're always willing to hear what we have to say. And so I think that sets us apart a little bit, is because I do really value those designers and what they bring to our table. And so I want other people looking in to see that and want to join and be a part of our community.
And the truth is, it all goes back to culture. It really does, because it's not really about what we do or even what the company does, because the people out there are going to see our people. They're not going to see us. And so how they see our people feel about what's happening at jBloom is more important than what Bret and Jennifer are like, right? Because they connect with those people. And so the more we can get them, make them feel like they feel a part of it, they're going to share that. And then people are going to see that. And if they see that and they see their friend and what the opportunities they've had, and something happens horrible at their company that makes them have to make a change, then we hope this is a place that they find. But they're usually going to find that through your current sales field.
And what we were noticing too is a lot of the Plunder girls had already been researching and looking, and they're watching what you're doing, and when you don't even know. And so having that for them to be able to look at and see what our company is like, they were doing that and we didn't even know.
So this acquisition is one chapter in an incredible story of jBloom. As you look back, all the way back to 2004, what do you feel have been some of the other really keys to the ongoing success of the company?
I think being willing to change. I hate to keep going back to it, but we have made lots of different changes. Some were good and some weren't good, right? So we're going to make some changes that aren't great. You just got to hope you can change from your change quick enough. But being willing to still, and then just not being willing to give up. I mean, we've all been through hard times with all the different 2008. We've all went through it. COVID. We all went through it, right? There's all kinds of challenges that are going to come at your way. It's just sometimes just surviving and doing what you're doing is going to help you sustain the long term. And you have to add change in there, but also just not giving up. I mean, there's lots of people that just said, I've had enough, and then they just give up. And we don't want to be that. We want to keep going, and because we know there's a lot more people that can use what we have.
I'm the type of personality too, which is surprising, but when somebody tells me that it's not working, or they can't, or they don't think it can work, that just fuels me to show them that it can. And so that's what I want mostly out of our company, is that we did not give up. We kept pushing, and to show that it can be a successful story.
Yeah, it gets back to the give it some time. Make sure you have some of that runway. So with many founder-led companies, family is always a really important aspect of it. And I'm curious, I know you have 4 kids. They've all been college athletes. Can you give any advice to other founders about working with family? How have you done that? Did you bring the kids in at any point in their lives as part of this?
Yeah, our oldest daughter is our graphic designer. She does photography for us. And she would definitely be one that could take over one day. I firmly believe. I think working with family, we absolutely love it, but it depends on the dynamic of your family. So that I feel like is the key. So if you have the right dynamic, it can definitely work. If not, I'm not so sure, but we definitely have it. And so
we were fortunate that our girls they grew up, this is their life, right? They've seen us do this the whole time. And so they've been involved in it. They know our designers. Our designers, of course, now with social media, they all know them. And so they're a big part of what we do. And our field knows our kids, that even the ones that aren't involved in the business, they know about them because we share about them. But I think having that and having them seen us, everything we've gone through, I mean, there's our hardest workers too, even our ones that aren't full-time. When the summers, when they're out of college, they're here working, and they're working just like everybody else right along with them. And it's not just because they're our kids, they're doing whatever anybody else is doing. And
they love conference time. They come here. 2 of our daughters work the 2 a.m. shift to get orders out to all of our designers so they could take it home with them before they left conference. So they love being a part of it. And we love having to be part of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I know that the staff as well as the distributors on their side, it's really rewarding to see the family involvement, to watch the kids grow up. It's an incredible experience for people outside of the family as well. So any hard and fast rules like no work talk at dinner or anything like that?
I say that.
I flunk that. Well, actually, the whole Permalinks discussion happened at home.
Sure.
After dinner, when we were we say discussing it, some would say argue, on how it can work. And one of our daughters walks in when we're having this heated discussion, and she's like, what is going on? So we probably are not good at that rule. We have those conversations. It's just 24 hours. It's what we do. And so it really is a lot of our life, good or bad.
We love it.
We do. When you love what you do, it's not a big deal. But
yeah,
I do talk about it more than most at home.
No, that's great. I'm glad you got to do it as a family. Absolutely. So with being so cognizant of change and trends, I'm curious what you're seeing in the channel now. What are some of those key trends that we as companies need to be aware of? How are today's distributors that are coming in different than those even just a few years ago?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is you're right, it is changing. And with the gig economy and people being able to get extra jobs out there at a lot of places, right? There's different ways you can do that now. That used to be the direct sales thing, that you could earn extra income. They can do that a lot of ways now. That's why I think it keeps going back to that culture and that community, because that's something that they're not getting any of these other places. They're not getting the community. They're not getting the friendships. They're not getting the support. You just don't get that. You could be delivering Uber Eats by yourself in your car, but you're not getting that community. And that's what direct sales offers. And that's what we can offer. And that's what I think people are looking for. They want to have a purpose and they want to be part of a community. And
then we have to provide a system that makes it easy for them to have success. So I feel like so many times people, if it's not easy, if they have to figure out too many things on their own, then they'll just leave. But if you have systems in place that they can see true success right off the bat, then I feel like they'll stay, because then they start seeing the community part.
For sure.
So as you both look out over the next 3 to 5 years there at jBloom and in the direct selling channel, what excites you the most about the next few years?
I think the opportunity ahead. I mean, there's opportunity everywhere. And right now, even depending on what all is going on in the world, it doesn't really matter to us. There's just a lot of people that we think we can help. And that's how our field looks at it too. If you truly look at that and see there's so many more people that need something like what we have and what many other direct selling companies have. There's lots of great ones out there.
And there's still so many pockets and areas that have never heard of jBloom before.
For sure.
So we just love that part of it too, that we have so much room for growth in areas that they don't even know what we do or who we are yet. And we're excited about that.
Well, Bret and Jennifer, thank you both so much for your time today, for sharing these incredible insights. It's so poignant and timely right now. We need a good example, a successful example of mergers and acquisitions going forward. Thank you for being the incredible champions that you are, and for the opportunity that you've given to so many of your designers and distributors over the years, and all you do to make the channel great.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for spreading the word on direct sales too. We appreciate all you do too.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you for tuning in. Please take a moment to subscribe and give a 5-star rating and review to help Direct Approach continue to provide more candid insights and interviews for direct selling corporate executives. We also invite you to join us for the Fall DSU happening October 7th through 8th in Plano, Texas. Visit dsnevents.com today for details. Thank you for listening and supporting DSN and the Direct Approach podcast.